All right, I'd like to welcome filmmaker and author Stephen Vittoria to the podcast. Thank you for joining me today. Just looking over everything that you've done, you've had quite the powerful career as a filmmaker and now releasing your new book, Christina and the Whitefish. So I'm excited to have a conversation with you and thanks for coming on the podcast.
So am I. I love these. It's a great way to have a bit of a deep dive into things. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, why don't you tell us and the listeners a little bit about yourself and your novel that you've just released?
well, most of my life, Stephanie, I've been a filmmaker, and about 2014, I decided to make a film called Murder Incorporated: Empire, Genocide, and Manifest Destiny. And I filmed for about 6 months. We had about 40 hours in the can. And all of a sudden, I decided that I bit off more than I could chew, that I could not do this film in a 2 hour mode. And we started talking about why don't we do this as a book? So we took 6 years to write the 3 volume nonfiction series, and I absolutely fell in love with writing long form like that. And I wanted to turn more to fiction. And I had a unproduced screenplay called Asbury Park. And it was back in no, 1988, 89. And we actually had Danny Aiello attached to the project, and Daryl Hannah and Vincent Gardenia, a very dear friend. And we were ready to make the film. And the money was set, the crew was set, and the entire project fell apart. And
Oh,
that was
man.
1990 or so. We had location scouted in Asbury Park, and we were ready to go. The Whitefish at the time was a minor character. Well, not a minor character. He was part of an ensemble cast. Um, so I ended up rewriting the script, and I called it Whitefish, and he became the major character. And this was 1992 or so. And we had another company very interested in making the film. They were talking to Dennis Franz. You may remember him from NYPD Blue.
Mm.
Um, and that project fell apart. So I decided, you know what? I didn't want strike three. So I put it on a shelf, and um, I ended up making other films. And 25 years later, COVID hit. And my production clients fell off a cliff, as they did for a lot of production companies. Luckily, we kept our head above water
Nice.
as a film production company, but barely. And I decided to convert Whitefish into a whole new project called Christina and the Whitefish. And what's interesting, Stephanie, is I never once opened the screenplay to write the novel. Uh, I didn't want that kind of impression from 25 years ago to
Mm.
to direct what I was doing. So um, I knew the arc of the characters and I knew the arcs of the story, but I rewrote it, and it was a wonderful challenge to work in a female character, a gay woman. And it was an absolute joy to write the novel, because a screenplay is nothing more than a blueprint for a film. It's like a blueprint for a building, right? It's just
Yeah.
the girders and the foundation, and the actors and the director bring it to life. But writing the book, you're able to flower it, you're able to color everything. And I was hooked. If I never make another film again, I don't care. I'm gonna write and write and write until I can't write anymore. And so that was the birth of Christina and the Whitefish.
And the other layer with Christina and the Whitefish is that they're both veterans. And so what drew you kind of, they both have their own scars in their own way. What kind of drew you to bring those two stories together?
If I got Christine and the Whitefish, you can see it here. Okay, I
Perfect.
thought it short. Let me just read the really brief synopsis, and then I think I can build off of that.
Great.
It's 1994. Christina, a young Gulf War veteran wrecked by war and personal tragedy, seeks redemption in Asbury Park, the seaside mecca of her childhood, now reigned over by the self-proclaimed king of Asbury Park, the Whitefish, a disabled Vietnam-era vet. It's here on the Jersey Shore that a chance meeting leads to a profound and life-altering connection. Um, so I thought that kind of distilled it down for the audience for what we have. But I've always been a very strong anti-war advocate, anti-empire advocate, and my entire life, everything I've worked on. And I think that fiction, especially in 2025, is a great way to share this anti-war story without lack of a better term, without hitting anyone over the head with overt political screeds. I mean, you can hear that all the time. And
Yeah.
after writing Murder Incorporated, that is one long three-book political screed, as it should be. That's what it was designed to be. But I wanted Christina and the Whitefish to be a personal story. How does geopolitics and the decisions of the power structure of sending people to war and what happens in war, how does that affect two human beings, just in a very specific and personal way? Um, and at the time, when I was writing this, it was 2020 to 2023, I guess. You would love this. I used to just pack up a lunch every day in my car, and I would drive over to a park in Playa Vista, California. I live in Los Angeles. And I would sit in the car with my laptop, and because during COVID, we
Yeah.
didn't all isolating, and it was wonderful to kind of write outside, and it became my safe space. And if
Mm.
someone was parked in my parking spot when I got there, boy, was I pissed. I owned that parking spot. But I would find another parking spot. But I wanted to have an incredibly strong female character because the Whitefish is an incredibly strong male character. And the original project had an awful lot of testosterone in it. So I wanted her to be able to not only hold her own, but as the structure of the story goes, it starts out his story, then it becomes their story. And by the end of the book, it's Christina's story ultimately, which is what I love about the structure. We watch her arc just really get to a pretty amazing point. And I wanted to, uh, I guess, shine a light on for the reader, the real personal tragedy and trauma that war creates in a human being. The Whitefish suffered greatly from not only PTSD, but he was horrifically injured in the war, stepping on a landmine in the Central Highlands of Vietnam, 1966. But the story's generational in that this happened to him in 66. The story takes place in 94. He's had some time to, you never move on from that kind of trauma, but you sort of find a place to be able to keep it. And it always
Sure.
comes back. It will come back to him. Christine is living in the moment. She has just stepped out of a VA hospital in Los Angeles after coming back from the very first Gulf War in Saudi Arabia, and she is not physically harmed, but she is badly mentally damaged and suffering from trauma. The book's not all that heavy because it's a story of redemption and healing and resilience and how these two people from two different wars uh, deal with each other. This is this incredibly platonic relationship, and it's a relationship of souls.
Mm.
And I think that's why people of all ages have really gravitated to the book. We had a book event in Pasadena about a week ago, and the audience was, from 17, 18-year-old to 75, and they all had a piece of the pie. They all felt it in a certain way. So it's really horrific. The media and the people in power have changed. It used to be called shell shock, and then it
Mm.
was called battle fatigue, and then it was something else I forget. And now they've got it down to letters, PTSD. It's just so sterilized that it doesn't mean anything. It's horrific trauma. It comes
Hmm.
it comes back to people in ways that are undescribable. And I was lucky enough in one way, unlucky enough to, I had worked on three films that dealt with veterans who were going through from the Vietnam War and from the Iraq War. I also had a very dear uncle who was like a second father to me, and he had his right leg blown off in
Oh
Korea.
man.
And I spent a lifetime with my Uncle Benny from Newark, New Jersey. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about him later. He was the quintessential Italian from Newark, New Jersey. He was in the Marines and he had his leg blown off. And we had, conversations that were, just incredibly private and personal. And he used to tell me he'd be able to still feel his toes
Mm.
so I had this unfortunate history with people being over medicated by the Veterans Administration. Things like taking Klonopin for a year and a half, and people are only supposed to be on Klonopin for 3 weeks, and
Oh geez.
they're just over. And that's a lot of that is in the book, especially with Christina. And it's just beautiful to watch these two people come together in Asbury Park in '94, which is a dying dystopian town on the Jersey Shore, right on the ocean. Part of it's beautiful, and part of it is just not very nice, and people have forgotten about Asbury Park. It's coming back now, though, believe it or not. I'd actually have a hard time shooting the movie there now because they've made it look too good.
Too
Uh,
good. Now, so did you grow up in New Jersey?
I grew up in northern New Jersey, in
Okay.
Essex County. I was born in Newark, and shortly thereafter, my mom and dad moved to West Orange, which is a suburb of Newark and New York. I mean, it's all the tri-state area. And I lived in Montclair for a while. And then in well, I came to film school out here in Los Angeles. After undergrad, I went to Rider University in New Jersey. And then my wife Ellen and my daughter Shannon, who was when we moved out, she was maybe 6 years old. We moved out here, and um, the rest is history. We are Los Angelinos now. We love New York. We love New Jersey. I'm still a Yankees fan and a Giants and a Rangers and Knicks fan, but Los Angeles is our home,
Is
and
your home.
we truly love the people and the culture here.
With Asbury Park being the setting in a sense, do you have a personal connection? Did you spend time there growing up?
Absolutely. Everywhere else in the world, you go to the beach. In New Jersey, you go down the shore. Um, and every summer, and sometimes when it wasn't the summer, we went down the shore like millions of people uh, in New Jersey, in New York. A lot of folks on the Jersey Shore from Pennsylvania, from Philadelphia and Bucks County and that whole area along the Delaware River. So it's a real melting pot. And the Jersey Shore to the south is very Philadelphia.
Mm.
Hey, yo, Adrian. And probably just above Asbury Park is very New Jersey and New York. And we get into that in the book because Asbury Park becomes a character. Christina and the
Mm.
Whitefish are both characters, and Asbury Park is a major third character because it mirrors what these two characters are going through. It's a place that was once innocent and people went there for their vacation, and now it was a dying city. But yes, I was down there all the time. If it was, getting a house in the summer.
Mm.
In fact, I dedicated the book to Ellen and Shannon and all those fantabulous summers we had down the Jersey Shore. We loved it, and walking the boardwalk, and I mean, I remember swimming Asbury Park when I went with my parents. back in the 60s, they had this giant, they say the world's largest saltwater pool. And a couple of scenes in the book take place there. And I remember you were able to float in the pool because it was salt water, and there was a tunnel that used to go from the pool out to the beach, which was really kind of cool, because you could go from the pool and just go run out it's no longer there.
Oh man.
But I covered a lot of the history of Asbury Park, from the days of women wearing petticoats and carrying umbrellas, and it was a very hoity-toity, wealthy area, then becoming a very rock and roll area in the 60s and 70s. The Rolling Stones were there, and Alice Cooper, and Metallica. I mean, and then it just died.
Oh man.
There's a very famous guy that comes from Asbury Park. I can't remember his name. Oh, Bruce Springsteen. That's right.
Oh.
And Bruce filters in and about the book where it's a very homage to him, and the Whitefish has a unique fictional relationship with Bruce. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, even you've had some reviewers. I actually have a quote that have compared your writing to Bruce Springsteen's storytelling. So one quote says, "If Bruce Springsteen wrote fiction, it would read a great deal like this." So, because it's like that. Somebody said it was gritty but tender. So, how do you feel about that comparison?
It's really interesting. Well, when I first read it, I knew that the publisher was going to plaster that everywhere.
For sure.
I can quote it back to you now. It's one things I memorized in my head. Having been and still am a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, that was an amazing compliment. I honestly didn't see after Dave Zirin, who writes for The Nation magazine, he's an editor at The Nation. Um, After Dave wrote that, I said, well, yeah, I guess so. But I never really thought about Bruce Springsteen as an influence, but it's probably so ingrained in me, having grown up with it, it's probably just there. You know.
Sure,
So
definitely.
but we had a lot of, I mean, it was a real warm embrace of Bruce and his life down there. There's it's so weird as a filmmaker. I constantly call chapters in the book scenes. I can't get rid of that. I call readers audiences, but so if I do that, I apologize. Um, but there's a segment in the book that they have a contest. The Whitefish owns a tavern. He's a tavern owner on the boardwalk in Asbury Park, and his tavern is the only viable business left in Asbury Park in 1990. It's like an oasis. All the
Oh,
regulars go
wow.
there to eat and to drink. It's kind of a fun house, right? And they have these events where he has these meals, and so it was called a Springsteen Schmooze Fest, and people in the town, and I noticed this growing up, everyone has their own story about meeting Bruce Springsteen. I pulled into the ShopRite parking lot. That's a supermarket chain. And and who pulls in next to me but Bruce? And there's a whole story built around Bruce parking next to them, or just seeing him in these odd places at the A&P supermarket. And so we did a Springsteen Schmooze Fest where people try to top each other with stories. And you can tell most of it is BS.
Sure.
It doesn't sound like Bruce at all. Um, so we had fun like that with it. So I think a reader will really enjoy that. And maybe that's what Dave was talking about a little bit, that we did some of that Springsteen stuff. But
That kind of connection.
and it was fun to write that. That stuff was not um, that stuff was in the screenplay, but not quite as developed as I developed it in the book.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, have you had veterans reach out to you about the book? Because thinking of, my husband, he's a veteran. He was a Marine. He served in Iraq. So many of the things that we've already talked about, they resonate throughout the generations of our veterans. So, while Christina can connect to Whitefish, I think our veterans now can connect to the whole story. So, I was just wondering if you had veterans reach out to you.
That's very insightful, because yes, they have, and the book would not be published had Alternative Book Press's senior editor, Tracy Haught, who embraced the book with a verve and a vigor that you only dream about when you're an author working with a publisher. And she did, I think, basically because of what the book is and the writing, but her ex-husband was a Gulf War vet in the second Iraq War and suffered greatly from PTSD. And Tracy believes that the book belongs uh, in the hands of every vet suffering from this horrific tragedy. And we're working with Veterans for Peace. We're working with Veterans Against the War. We're reaching out to veterans. We're trying to be delicate because, when you have a book, there's this. At the same time, you're trying to sell books. So it's for me, it's all about the creative endeavor. I mean, you have to sell books because the publisher needs to make money. I didn't write the book to make money because you don't make documentary films like I have for money, and you don't write books like this for money. You write a murder mystery if you want to do that. These are tough books to sell. Um, but we always wanted veterans to embrace the book because there's a huge piece of the book where Christina, I try not to give too much away for your audience, but Christina is given this gift of seeking out an alternative to the Veterans Administration. And there were a number of these types of places around where vets got together with doctors who were doing alternative, it's not even medicine, alternative therapy for
Mhm.
them. And it's one of the things that helped save her life. And Tracy from the publisher recognized this. So they are actively reaching out. And right now, I have the founder of Veterans for Peace. They have hundreds of branches across the country, very interested in wanting to put together book clubs. I think that's the
Mm.
best way to do it. Put together book clubs. It's a way for them to raise money because they need to raise money to get their message out. So we're looking forward to that. But in many ways, this book is almost an homage to my Uncle Ben, who I mentioned before, because he was a Marine,
Mhm.
like your husband, and very proud of his service. But he was split afterward because the treatment after war is so inadequate, and it's
Mhm.
such a shame that the country asked them to put their life on the line for whatever it is they're doing, whether you agree or not agree with the emphasis of the war. You have young men and women going to war, putting their life on the line. I've never put my
Yeah.
life on the line for anything.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if I could, but these men and women do, and it's
Mhm.
a remarkable thing. And then when they are killed, maimed, psychologically damaged, they're oftentimes forgotten. Uh,
Mhm.
the projects I've worked on, the idea of over medicating veterans just to get them out of the way. And that's what the book is truly about. It's about the pain that veterans uh, they live with the rest of their lives. I mean, my Uncle Ben, when he came back, he became very successful. I mean, he went to college. He just and he lived a great life. But he was very gregarious. But in his midnight hour, when he was alone,
Mhm.
he was a wreck for the rest of his life. He had
Yeah.
a baseball career. He could have played for the Philadelphia Athletics, who
Oh,
became
wow.
the Oakland Athletics and the Kansas City Athletics. But um, it's hard to play baseball when you come back with one leg, you know.
Yeah.
And uh, but he was so gregarious through life. He just wore this, and it's kind of a lot of the Whitefish is based on my Uncle Ben. They're not the same, but they're similar in many, many ways. And I think the Whitefish is a lot more. Oh, he's a lot more radical than my Uncle Ben
Okay.
because my Uncle Ben, even though he became kind of anti-war, he was still very semper fi.
Yeah.
He walked, but it's a very difficult thing because it's a very proud and incredibly difficult thing to put your life on the line And it was an unfortunate because I wish those people didn't have to go through their pain, but their pain is honored.
Like you said earlier, these individuals are still willing to put their lives on the line and go out there. And because of that, we owe them such a debt of gratitude, and better services.
Yeah, incredibly better services and a world where we don't send them to places where they're not needed,
Mm,
and that's in this book. We don't sugarcoat, Christina's time in Saudi Arabia and in Iraq and in Kuwait on the highway of death and the Whitefish, in the Central Highlands of Cambodia fighting the Vietnam War. Um, it's absolutely brutal.
absolutely. It's very true. So I want to go back to your Uncle Benny. Um,
Okay.
and I want to kind of
It
tie
brings a
that in.
smile to my face
Oh, me too. And
every time.
I don't even know him and he brings a smile to my face.
You would have loved him. He was everyone's favorite. We used to be season ticket holders for the New York Rangers
Oh,
for
fun.
25 years, and he was probably the most famous Ranger fan at Madison Square Garden. Everyone knew Uncle Benny. He had the loudest voice because he was in the Marines and he could,
Sure.
and people loved him. They were constantly bringing him free beers. He'd
Oh.
be hobbling around on his crutches. He could walk faster than I could on his crutches, and I was 18 years old at the time. And we had a very, very close relationship. So he's in this book.
Oh, that's cool. So let's talk
Yeah,
about your Italian American experience, maybe
sure.
family. Where did your family come from? Obviously, you were born and raised in New Jersey.
Yes, I am a first generation Italian.
Okay.
I was born in Newark, New Jersey. My mother was born in Newark, New Jersey. Her family came from southern Italy, from Naples and Avellino. My father was born in Italy, which
Hmm.
is something I am incredibly proud of. He came here with my father, Pat, whose name was in Italy was Pasquale, and came here with his sister Pasqualina
Oh,
and
cool.
Stefanina and my grandmother Angelina and my grandfather Stefan, who
Oh, cool.
I am named after.
That's who you're named after.
I was the first. I think I was the first grandson. Um, and my dad came here when he was 4, and they landed in Ellis Island, like many Italian, or maybe almost all Italian immigrants.
Sure.
Um, and That's my history. They moved to Detroit, Michigan. They moved to Brooklyn, and they moved to Newark, New Jersey. And my part of the family was in Newark, New Jersey. And my mom and dad met in Newark when they were very young, and um, my dad was a World War II veteran. I kidded him all the time. He made Lincoln, Nebraska safe for democracy. Thank God he didn't have to see any action like my Uncle Ben. But So yeah, veterans in my family run run very deep. But I was the first generation Italian American, and incredibly proud of that. I grew up somewhat in Newark, New Jersey, in the first ward of Newark, which is the Italian American neighborhood there, and then. We moved to West Orange, which is a suburb of Newark. You can still see Newark from West Orange. It's not
Oh,
very
cool.
far. And my dad was the first person in his family to go to college, Rutgers University. He was in World War II and on the GI Bill. He went to Rutgers, and the rest of the family slowly migrated, as many Americans did, out of the inner cities and into the suburbs.
Yep, absolutely. So have you been back to Italy, or have you gone to Italy, to visit your
No, I
families?
am ashamed.
I haven't
I I
either.
am ashamed to say that I have not. It is, um, I don't know if you can tell, I am very Italian and my family is very Italian, but I have not been back. My dad and my mom went back a number of times. So I lived through there, but I will go. In fact, I am thinking about getting my Italian citizenship.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Now, yeah, I mean, I think I qualify, so I have to go
Yeah.
on a trip to New York and New Jersey on a book tour with Christina and the Whitefish. But when I get back, I think I'm going to go to the embassy and get everything get
Get it
everything in order.
going.
Yeah,
Nice. I haven't been either. We're going next summer though, so I'm pretty excited.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, are you working on another I think you and I were talking about something before we started recording about Italian American.
I'm in the midst of it, and it's called the working title is called Newark Days, American Nights.
Mm.
It's a story of a young white kid and a young black kid growing up in Newark, New Jersey in the 1930s and 1940s, and it takes it right through their entire life.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I had there's a little piece here that I would love to just read. It's
Absolutely.
kind of about it's sort of based on my parents or my dad coming, but it's from this book because a lot of times, as you know, writers mine their personal history. So it's just really short, and it's about them.
Abs
It's about the family coming over, which is how my family um, came over to the United States. On 22 November 1929, the Italian ocean liner SS Vulcania sailed from the port of Naples with some 1,700 passengers. Bound for New York, the journey lasted 11 difficult days. Four of the passengers aboard were from Avellino, a small town 30 miles east of Naples. This ancient settlement rests on the Sabato River, surrounded by lush farmland and the Apennine Mountains. So that's a little bit of the history of my dad's family coming over.
so you're kind of
Mom's family,
intertwining it.
yeah, and my
Awesome.
mom's family, they came here a little bit earlier than my dad's family. And I always think, what's weird, and I know you have your Italian American society, there was always a thing that I felt, and I could see it, that like one family sort of thought they were better than the other family because they were here 10 years longer. Um,
They've got a leg up on them, right?
and it's like, no, you're kind of the same. But my grandfather, Rocco, my mom's father, was a barber, and he
Mm,
fought in the First World War for the United States, and um, he was wounded. And but he was a barber. He was the one of the most famous barbers in Newark, New Jersey. He had Rocco's
cool.
Barber Shop. And my other grandfather, Stefano, he always worked for the Ford Motor Company. You
Oh,
know,
wow.
he came here and he worked on the assembly line, um, and they both lived in Newark, and I was always incredibly proud to be from Newark, and my mom and dad never let me forget for a second that I'm Italian, and that I had a history, and that it was something to be proud of, which I am. And we were in Newark, even though we became suburban Americans. We didn't live in the city anymore. We constantly were in Newark. We on Saturdays we had to go with my dad. You couldn't just go to the ShopRite or the Path supermarket but you had to 15 different stores. You had tomatoes from this place. You had to get the meat from this butcher. Everything was separate, which is really wonderful. I
It
mean, it's
is.
kind of an old world connection, and I really miss that. I
Me
miss
too.
that
Yeah.
a lot, and I try to instill some of that in my daughter she's half Irish and half Italian. So, you know, I'm,
She's got some stuff going on there,
got some
right?
stuff going on there. Her name is Shannon and her last name is Vittoria. So she's got she's got both. And but I tend to think she's maybe 60% Italian and 40,
Yeah. It
but
tended it takes over a little bit, right?
it has to because we are who we are. But um, and she's an incredible cook, and she's a curator at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art
Oh,
now.
cool.
Very artistic, and as but she's also very Italian, and she loves cooking, and she's loud. Um, really stands her ground, and it's like my family growing up, and um, but yeah, it's been a wonderful existence coming from Newark, and
Yeah.
I've never ever forgotten those roots. And here I am um, writing this book that again takes place in Newark, um, and even with Christina and the Whitefish, there's a real New Jersey connection to that. And I didn't make the Whitefish Italian because that would have been too easy, because it's so easy for me to write Italian. So he's New Jersey, but he turns out that he's Portuguese. He feels
Oh,
Italian, but he's Portuguese, which is also an immigrant group that was very big in Newark. We used to go to Portuguese restaurants all the time, and uh,
yeah.
so that was kind of interesting to write that character. I
Oh,
mean,
I
he's
bet.
he's still very New Jersey, but not. It's kind of it's just a little bit to the left of or right of Italian, but there's a lot of me in the Whitefish. There's no doubt about that.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
people kind of
S-
see that. So,
Yeah. So do you have any book events coming up to promote the book?
we do. We've been in Los Angeles, and it's really interesting because the book has a definitely an East Coast flavor because it takes place in Asbury Park, and both Christina and the Whitefish are from New Jersey. They both make trips around the world. Christina ends up in Los Angeles for a little while, but she ends up coming back to Asbury Park because New Jersey was where she grew up, and um, uh, New Jersey became a really important part of the book. I should show you um, this, if you can see the picture on it.
Mm,
It's
yeah,
this amazing black and white photograph that is dark and beautiful at the same time. And the
it
book
is.
is dark and beautiful. And it was taken by a photographer named David Rucker, who I found the photograph online. And
Mm,
it was for sale, but just for sale to order and to put into a frame.
sure.
I wanted to use it for the book cover. So I refused, even when I was trying to sell the book, I didn't want to use someone else's artwork to help me sell my project. So I got in touch with David and I said, do you want to read the book? And he read the book. He fell in love with the book and he said,
Mm.
you can have the photograph. I said, I don't want to have the photograph. You can get paid for your art. But I just want your permission to be able to use it. Then we'll work out a price, which we did. But David Rucker is a wonderful photographer. And I thought this photograph captured uh, the book because it's beautiful and dark at the same time. And
It
that's
is.
what the book is. The book is very dark. You're talking about a great deal of pain, but it's also beautiful. And the characters, without really giving it away, the characters transcend the darkness. I mean, I
Yeah.
want a book that the characters, I mean, some people would write that book where they just, they end up dying at the end of the book. And these people still have problems, but they're better for having known each other, you know,
Yeah.
and both of them give each other life. And that's really, really important.
And the picture does stand out. That's the first thing I was drawn to was that picture on the
It
cover.
it knocked me out when I first saw it. I said, "This is what's in my brain," And David he's become a fan of the book. I know when we do our East Coast book tour, he's going to show up at a couple of places, and we were thinking about blowing up the cover of the book and then giving it to someone at the end of the
Oh,
event
cool.
or something, And
Nice.
no, so it's really important, right? What you have on the cover of a book. I mean, that
Yeah,
really grabs people, and um, David's photography is really something. So I'm
it's
really proud
beautiful.
to have it on there.
Absolutely. So, where can the listeners buy your book? I know it's on Amazon.
It's on Big Bad Amazon, and but you can get it. It's really anywhere. You can get it
Okay.
on Amazon. You can get it Barnes and Noble online. You can any bookstore will order it for you because it's. But online you can pretty much get it. And if you have like a small bookstore that you would rather buy from, just ask them to order it. It'll come in a couple of days, or you go to Amazon and you get it right away. Or but you can. All of these places have the stuff online too.
Yeah. So where can the listeners find you, find out more information about you? Do you want to plug some social media or anything?
Sure. If you go to just my name, stephenvittoria.com, you can find all of our book events. We have events coming up. We have one in Los Angeles now. By the time you see this, it'll probably be over. But we leave Los Angeles and we go to New Jersey. We're down the shore in New Jersey at a couple of bookstores in and around Asbury Park. And then we're all over New Jersey. And then we go up to Vermont. We've been booked at a number of different bookstores in Vermont, and then we're coming back to Los Angeles, and we'll probably so you could follow us on stephenvittoria.com, and there's a couple of events page, which is nice. The events pages it started as one, and now there's three event pages.
Oh,
Well,
nice.
it's kind of catching on a little bit. And then this Thursday, you guys won't know. I'm not going to say a date. I don't want to date your podcast, but my daughter, who is a curator at Los Angeles County Museum of Art, is going to be the moderator. And
Oh, cool.
if there's anybody who's been able to shut me up and ask me tough questions, it's my daughter. So I'm really looking forward to that because she's a fan of the book too. But she'll ask me some tough questions, and she'll do a great job.
Perfect. And I'll put all that information in the show notes for our listeners and
Thank
your
you.
social media tags so that they can follow you. So, well, thank you so much for coming on. This was a really great conversation, and I'm glad that we got to share your book with our listeners. So, yeah, if you are interested, go out there and, like we said, buy that book and support Stephen. So, thank you again for coming on.
I hope folks enjoy it, and it's a book that's written with a great deal of love and a great deal of historical perspective, and it really speaks. It speaks to people today, even though it takes place in 1994. It's a very current book.
Absolutely. Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, I completely agree. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. It was nice to
Thank
meet
you.
you.
It's a pleasure meeting you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.